be more than human. And welcome back to the channel, my fellow Dresden fanatics. My name is Joseph Carroll. I write under the pen name J.R. Carroll. And today we are going to talk about side jobs. Now, I wasn't sure that I was going to do side jobs, but one of the Dresden gang that does all the discussions with me, Chaz from A Bookish Chaz, said that his plan for the month was to read both of the side story collections, and he wanted to talk about them later in the month. So I was like, sure, man. It's been a long time, especially since I went through side jobs. I was like, all right, man. If you want to discuss those, I'll have to reread them. So we're here. And before we get into that, make sure you keto chop that like button and that subscribe button, much like Karen Murphy would do. So I had to do some notes up in here because there's like 10 stories or something like that. So I have some of the names of the stories, and some of them I don't. But let's kind of jump into these, and some of them I may just go over real quick, and others I may stick on for a minute. I don't want to make this an hour-long, discussion or anything. But let's get into it. So the very first story that we get is pretty awesome because we get to see basically the proto Dresden story. And if you listen, I'm not sure if he puts this into the physical copies. I would love to get my hands on one. At some point, I'm going to try and have every Dresden book and all of them autographed at some point. I'm working my way through there. So let me know in the comments if he actually puts his little notes and stuff in the physical books, but in the audio, he does a little bit of why he wrote all of these and what situations he wrote these under. And he talks about, this being the first real, Dresden story, and it wasn't quite up to par, for publication. I think it was great. I don't know if for this short story collection he went back in and had it edited to be better, but if he didn't, I think it's great. It's back when he was, being an understudy PI and we actually hear about this story later on, where he was tracking down the 10-year-old girl. It's pretty hilarious because you think this girl is supposed to be kidnapped, but it turns out that she just kind of ran away, and her parents ran with the story of, our daughter was kidnapped and whatnot. And she's a pretty, when Dresden first runs into her, she's pretty spicy, kind of like, I don't need your help and blah, blah, blah. But over the course of the story, she kind of softens up to him. And then we get Dresden fighting a troll on a bridge. So that was the first supernatural battle that he went up against, and he kind of sets up in there that he doesn't have this unlimited amount of power and stuff, which I think is one of the best things in Dresden. Like he runs out, and it's not like he runs out because some of these weird, not weird, but harder magic systems have like, I ran out of elixirs, or I ran out of metals, or whatever, but yeah, I loved it. I think it's great to see where Dresden comes from. So the next one was Billy and George's Wedding short story, and this one was pretty good. You had because and like a lot of these we hear about later on, and it's in passing in one of the later books where he talks to Maeve about how, like, I know what you did. It was you at Billy and George's wedding. And so here we get to see what happened, and it was Green Teeth, her little sidekick, that tried to hook up with Dresden in the early books. like disguises herself as Georgia and tries to marry Billy, and that would have got, if he would have kissed her or whatever, it would have gave her power over him and stuff. It was a good a good little story. Nothing too deep, but it was cool to see where that couple sentences that we got came from. And the next one is Thomas's birthday. Now this one I really did like. There was a lot of funny stuff, a lot of cool battles and stuff. And anytime you can incorporate the Black Court into anything, I am there for it. You had Thomas in his hairdresser French persona. You had them LARPing at this mall. We got to see little folk that were cobs, and Dresden kind of strong arming them into doing his bidding by breaking shoes, and they're like, "No, don't do that. That's leather that's Italian leather." But that was really cool. And then of course, it kind of gets more personal, at the end because it's Thomas's birthday, and him and Dresden, are kind of share a moment there at the end. Which was really good, very very brotherly. And then you had the next one was Honeymoon, and Honeymoon was an interesting one. Jim kind of did a little bit of research of where honeymoon comes from, and then he kind of loosely incorporated that in here, and we get Valkyrie in this, and we figure out a little bit more about Mac, a little bit about the beer, and and then actually I think a few characters here actually end up in another short story, which I will get to. I'll get to it in a future. But this one, this one wasn't anything super crazy. Just a fun little short story, that deals with newlyweds and Valkyrie and alcohol. All good things, right? And then one of the funny stories, and Jim kind of said that this is supposed to be a comedy, and he did this for an anthology. And it was like, can you write Dresden as a comedy? And so this was Dresden's day off. And like I said, I hadn't read these in a while or listened to them. And so this was really good. This is Dresden just being annoyed at, he was supposed to have a day off. It starts off with him the day before his day off, having game night with everybody, and being very annoying about that's not how wizards act and stuff. But then he's like, oh, it's my day off, and he's supposed to go horseback riding with Lucio and have a whole day for her. This is when they were still together, and Motley's like, hey, I got this potion that I want to mess with in the basement. I'll be out of your hair. You'll be gone most of the day. By the time you guys get back, I'll be out, boss. And that's not what happened at all. Just every little thing from the moment he wakes up, just didn't wake up on time, trying to rush. Molly's setting the place on fire, and just the worst things you can imagine. I want to say a pair of the werewolves show up naked, and it was just, just a good fun time. Anytime that Jim can just make Harry aggravated, it's a good, just good, clean fun. And then one of the short stories that a lot of people talk about and is kind of an interesting thing, and is gotta be pulled up at some point, is the Oblivion War short story with Thomas, where apparently, Thomas and I think he said less than 200 people are in this kind of war to make old gods disappear. Now, if you kill them, they just kind of come back, right? But if people just completely forget that they exist, they fade off into oblivion. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And it's in Thomas's first person perspective. You get to hear Thomas talk about how Harry does stuff and how he thinks about Harry, and he gets to interact with Bob on his own. It is a fascinating one, and I'm just Oblivion War has to come back up again. It is such a cool concept that not nobody knows that they're doing this, so they don't get any thanks for it, and they don't even know how much they have helped because they destroy any books or anything. So just over time, you just forget, because that's what you have to do. You can't remember it. And they bring up how with Bram Stoker's Dracula was pushed out, and some of the other was pushed out into so everyone knows how to kill Black Quarry vampires. But then also how the White Council had pushed out some spell books, because the more you try to use the spell, the more it's diluted and everything. But this is the opposite of what you want. You don't want these people to know about about these gods at all. And so they're trying to, Thomas and these people are trying to even hide it from from the White Council. So one of the best and insightful short stories. And then we have one called The Warrior, which is a story about Michael, and how Michael's kind of just living his life, and you're with Harry, but we get to see how Michael's working. He's getting to be with his family and do softball, coach softball, and all this stuff. And then we get to see what happens when he is no longer a Knight of the Cross, but someone kind of comes after one of his kids, and we get to see that he's still a badass, even with the limp and all the and all the torn bodies messed up. He still got it. So that one was really good. You get a little bit more information about what's going on with the church too, and how the church isn't perfect, which we all know about that, right? And then one of the funnier ones and cooler ones is called Last Call. And this is another one with Mac in it, and about Mac's beer. Dresden shows up at Mac's, Mac and Allie's, and just everybody's beat to hell. Like, just people just lay down on the floor. Mac's all like his eyes swollen shut and everything. And, it turns out that, I want to say she was a goddess or something to that effect, that had drugged his his ale, and was I don't know if it was making the people horny or something, but like to a ruthless effect. And also how they they couldn't control themselves, and they could be controlled by this lady. So it was really interesting. You're like, don't mess with Mac's ale. And then another one, and this one, some people overlook this one, but I think this is a big short story. It's called Love Hurts. And the process of this is just people had been couples and stuff had been just found dead, and so Dresden and Karen are trying to search out, and they start finding partially clues together, and it turns out it happens to be a red court vampire who is dabbling in love magic. And so we even get to see like Harry and Karen for a short period of time be in love and very cutesy and holding hands and even kissing a little bit. And they even, especially Karen, was like, "This is, I want to. Why can't we keep this? Keep this feeling." But it turns out that it is a red court vampire who is trying to kind of force love or the feelings of love on humans, and hoping that that more humans will actually, through this, fall in love for real and protect them from the white court. Kind of the red court's idea of Bram Stoker, where the white court kind of put out that book so that the black court would, die out or be really hurt. And so this is the red court trying to do that to the white court. And I think that is a super interesting thing. Now we know what happens to the red court, but this could be an interesting concept to be brought back at a later time. And then the big one is Aftermath. And this is a Karen Murphy centered, story about right after, Harry was shot there at the end of Changes. And this is her not knowing, is he alive, is he not? Georgia gets kidnapped, and her and Billy are trying to, find, and I think this might be the longest story here, and they're trying to figure out, what's going on. And this is where we're introduced to the Fomor and the experiments and stuff that they were doing that we hear about later when Harry comes back. But this was a super emotional story. You really get to see how Karen and even other people really feel, and how they're scared that she misses Harry on a personal level, but also like Harry made things so much easier for everybody, because multiple times in that story she talks about like, well, Harry would just figure this out in like 10 seconds. He would just use his magic and just figure it out. But she's got to do the detective work, and she's got to take the long route. And it is a pretty emotional story. One of the best short stories in here, if not the best short story. This is the one most people talk about. But have you read Side Jobs before? What is your favorite story here if you have? And hit me in the comments there. Again, make sure you like, and if you've made it this far, why not subscribe? If you're not already subscribed, it helps us grow the Dresden fan base and get these videos out to more people. I much appreciate it, and remember, be more than human.